So this is assignment submission for online store client registration system. So this website or web app will basically can take in the name, the email, and the phone number of a client. So I can say like Joe Brown at Gmail, and then 102 blah blah blah. I can submit the client data. First I have to actually run the web app, and then I go back, Joe at Gmail, and then 102 blah blah blah, and then I can view the client list, and then it shows it in a nice list view. I can navigate to and from, and yeah. So that's basically the whole flow of the website. I can add others like Connor. Random. I can submit that data and then I can view it right here. And so basically how it works is this is the first thing that runs. So I'm getting the session in the model. I'm basically saying take the client's array list from the session if it is stored there. If that client's array list does not exist within the session, then create one and add it to the session, and then add a new client to the model. So form will use that client attribute that was added, and so client is an empty object. And so this client submission form, it will take that object that was passed to it. So it's basically saying, look inside of the model for the attribute of client. I acquired it. Now change the fields of client. So because TimeLeaf knows it's an object, these asterisks specify properties of an object. And so it's saying inside of this object, change its name. And so client obviously has a name, and you can see it's auto-completed. It has a name, email, and phone number, and so it dynamically gives you all the properties of this client, and it allows you to change them. And because these are inputs, whatever the user inputs into this will be saved, and then when the submit client data button is clicked, this action and the method will occur. So basically, whenever the user clicks submit client data, the form post mapping will fire. And so you go to the form post mapping. It takes that modified client, so it takes what the user entered in for the client, and then it adds it adds what the user inputted for the client to the client's array list, and then I update that client's attribute on the session. So I'm updating this client array list with the new client that was just added, and then I'm adding that, and then I'm adding another new client to the form. And so basically what that does, it just resets the page. So I can just infinitely enter client data, and obviously they will be added. There's no error checking in this. I could have like checked for error if any of these fields are blank, then throw an error, or if the email does not contain an @Gmail. But yeah, and so the reason I need to add this client attribute back is because, well, the form needs that to modify it needs it to be able to modify the fields on the client object. That's why I need to add it to the model, because again, these TimeLeaf templates cannot they cannot modify like session attributes. They can only modify model attributes. And so this template expects a client object, and if I don't give it a new client object, it will error. But it also makes sense why I need to add a new client object every single time I've basically clicked. Every time I click submit client data, I now need to enter in the data of another client. So it allows you to stay on the same screen while I'm just clicking this button. And so within this form, I also have another button specified by the buttons div and called view client list. And so what view client list is, it calls the list get mapping. And so it will call this, it will get the array list, the client's array list from the session, and then it will add the attribute of clients to the model so that list can display it. And then it takes that client's array list, it loops through every element in the array list, and then it gets and it expects each element in the client's list to actually be a client object, and then it will display the fields of that client or the properties within a within a table with like rows. So like each of these will be a row, and these will be the what's it called, the like this is one, this is another one, this is another one. I forget what they're called. They're, oh yeah, the cells, the table cells. So like this will be a table cell, this will be a table cell, this will be a table cell. And yeah, and then you can also go back. There's a button. Yeah, here's the back to form page, and it just goes, and it goes all the way back to here. And that and the entire reason I have this if statement is so that I can actually go back here without actually modifying, without actually calling. So the reason why if I click view client list and I go back to form page is because I'm like, every time I'm doing it, I'm not actually adding, it's not adding another blank page. It's basically, I'm completely avoiding calling this, because whenever I call this post mapping, a new client is added to the session. But doing it this way, returning back to the where is it? Yeah, returning back to the the home page allows me to completely avoid calling this post mapping. And so I had an error before, and the error was basically, I'm going to rerun the program. The error was every single time I would view the client list and go back, it would add a new client. And so I had to figure out a way to avoid calling this post mapping, because this post mapping obviously adds a new client. Because my error was, before I was actually going back, I wasn't going back to the home page, I was going back to this form page. But I didn't have this check. And so I added this check, and I did this because before I was always creating a new array list like this. And I didn't have a sort of way to like check if it was null, and so I wasn't able to actually go back to this home page at all without erroring. And so I made it so that I can always go back to the home page regardless of where I am. I think that's just good practice. So like you always want to not like basically, here's what I had before. I had like I make an array list, clients equals new array list, and then I just added that. But as you can see, every time I return here, now I'm creating a new array list. I'm not getting it from the session, and so that was my error. But then if I do it this way, it allows me to always return to this page, so that I can avoid this page, which allows me to avoid creating a new client every time I navigate between these two pages. And yeah, hopefully that video was not too long, but yeah, thank you.